Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Stefan Kaplan. I am a social media and visual strategist, and welcome to the Spin It Social Hour, a discussion about photography and social media and many other things. I am really thrilled to be here with you, but I want to start off by asking everybody, how are you doing? How's that for a build-up? The voice, and then here we are. So, I wanted to ask everybody, how's everybody doing out there dealing with this COVID crisis right now and everything that's going on between the economy and many other things? I want you to know that I'm thinking about everyone. I'm also thinking about our photo community, and I'm thinking about our first responders. But we are here today to discuss photography and social media. And I have started the Spin It Social Hour out of a true labor of love born out of care and concern for our photo community. So I am a former photo editor for the New York Times Wire Service. I was there for 15 plus years, and I have been a social media and visual strategist for the past 10. So I wanted to start this passion project and work with all photographers around the world to have them on, to talk about their work, to talk about their journey, and to be able to show their work to you so that when this crisis subsides, and that we're getting a handle on this hopefully one day soon, that you will know them better, companies will know them better, everybody will know them better through these efforts so that they can get back on track, because this is devastating on everyone. And I wanted to do my part by helping that way. So today's guest is the great Peter DaSilva, okay? Now, I followed Peter's work for a long time, having been a photo editor at the Times. I've also worked with the Pulitzer Prizes. I've worked with them for 3 years in a row doing social media, live visuals, and social media. And I've also worked with AARP and many other organizations out there. I've been an executive coach, and also I teach at FIT. So, having followed Peter's work over the years, having done all this, I've been a big fan of his for a long time. So I am thrilled to have him here. So I am going to give you a quick look at some of his work. And I think you'll get a kick out of the music that ended up being on this video, and enjoy this beautiful play of his work right here as we get set to bring him on, okay? Peter's work has been published everywhere. He has just been an incredible photographer for 20, 30 plus years, and it is just a pleasure, absolute pleasure to have him. So I hope he liked the music. It went with the John Lee Hooker photo, that's for sure. Peter, welcome. I made you laugh, and you know what? In this trying time, I did one of my jobs.
Oh my God! Thank you so much for having me.
You know, I used the Spark post to put that together, and there's an option where you have to click on Mute Music, and I sent it. I put it on. I always play it, but I was so happy with the edit of the work. I hope you were.
Yes.
That I had the music, and you said, by the way, did you send me that with some music on it? I'm like, what?
It worked. You know,
it worked.
It is what it is.
John Lee Hooker would possibly approve.
Yeah.
Little strumming going on there. So, Peter, it is an absolute honor to have you here. I have been the biggest fan of your work since my first days at the New York Times. I remember seeing your photos. It was one of the highlights of my career, honestly, to edit your photos and to look at this incredible library. So why don't you begin by telling everybody a little bit about yourself, and I'm going to let you do that while I go through some things here.
All right. Originally from Hong Kong, came here in '66. I was like 4 years old. As career-wise, I'm self-taught. I started probably back in the early 80s. I was working in a bike shop in Berkeley. Um, Things were going on in Berkeley, the anti-apartheid protests. I started going out to check them out. Brought out a camera. I don't know. It got really interesting. And I just, it was something about not just being part of history. I just got into my head that it was to, somehow capture it. Was something that was really interested to me.
Right. Right. Well, I tell you one thing, you found your calling early on, my man, because let me tell you something, your work just makes my jaw drop. I'm sure it makes a lot of people's jaws drop. And I've conversed with a lot of people over the week. I've chatted with a lot of people over the week, and they're like, Peter's the man. Oh, wow. How did you get him on your show? How'd you do this? How'd you do that? I'm like, you know what? If there was one person I wanted on this show, is to show off his classic skills. And you are a master photographer, in my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it comes from all the people, and like I said, being self-taught. All the people I worked for were my teachers. From it started out at the Daily Cal in Berkeley. Didn't go to school there, but I worked for the newspaper, the Oakland Tribune, UPI San Francisco, AP San Francisco, people from the Chronicle. So it was like, while I was coming up, it was all the names of people that, that worked at these places.
Right.
You got Terry Schmidt from UPI, Pete Lebo, bureau chief of San Francisco AP.
Okay.
God, getting to work with Scott Beater.
It goes on and on, right?
Yeah. I mean, Jim Wilson with the New York Times.
Yeah.
Everybody, all the staff. I mean, even being an outsider,
right.
they accepted me and helped me out. We got Kim Komenich from the Examiner.
Right.
It goes on.
No, I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, like I said, I have it here. You've worked for all those. I have another list that you've worked for the LA Times, Business Week, the IHT, as I used to call it, the International Herald Tribune, Newsweek, the Chicago Tribune, Der Spiegel, the Washington Post, and countless other periodicals and other media sources. So, that's one of the things that I loved working in The Wire, and that was a special part of working for The Wire and being the supervising photo editor, is that I got to know everybody. And from many different papers, many different other media organizations. And I love that because I've been able to keep all these connections over the years and stay in touch with people and find out more about their lives and how they're doing and their work. And that's why I just couldn't wait to get you on here. So one of the things that I found is that, and it's true, over the years, you've been assigned to capture like a majority of Silicon Valley CEOs for the New York Times, creating a who's who of young entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, that was a blessing. I mean, to have one-on-ones with everybody starting from before the dot-com boom, it was I don't know. It was just amazing to have these interactions with people and watch them grow over time and become, Zuckerberg, he was a kid when I first shot him.
Right.
To see where he is now.
Isn't that crazy? That's crazy, right? I know. Yeah. It's. I'm going to pull up your website as we're talking here. I love that it has a little slideshow, so we can go through some things. That's always helpful because I don't have to go in manually and do some of this stuff. But leave that up there just for a bit. But I found this great quote from you, and it said, I began to think I wanted to photograph, that I could be a part of history, just like you said, and record what I witnessed rather than sitting back and looking at what others had to say. And I think that's a huge part of what we do, right?
Yeah. No, and I'm a big fan of process and in the sense of how things work. I grew up with National Geographic. We had a collection going back to the mid 50s all the way up until 2014, and I had to get rid of them, and had every issue of National Geographic. And in the early days, I just looked at the pictures, and it stuck with me.
Right. No, it's just, I look at your photos and I see all the detail, of course. I see all the work that's put into everything that you do. I mean, you are as your photos are as perfect as they come, in my opinion. And, you know, I love this other quote I found, getting people comfortable with you is major. Your personality is what will make them make a good, your personality is what will help make a good portrait. It is important to identify with them, to communicate with your subjects. Talk about that, Peter.
God, you know, I mean, working with these C-level executives, you know, sometimes I would have 5 minutes with them and I had to break that wall down in literally, you know, 15 seconds I walk in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't do that, you're not going to be able to make a picture of any type, because you're scrambling, and it was all muscle memory. It was like start a conversation, get them to loosen up. At the same time, I'm looking around the room trying to figure out where I'm going to put them, what the light is,
Right.
you know. So there's like, I call it aligning of the moons.
Okay.
You know, if we had like 10, 15 moons, if you could get them all aligned at once, you're going to make a picture that you envisioned, or at least had an idea that you were going to walk away with.
Right, right. You know, one of the things that I was thinking about, you know, looking at all these incredible portraits that you've done, is that, and we just discussed this offline the other day, is, you know, the beauty of using so many of the incredible cameras that you use, and how it creates a real comfort level and also a really incredible point of conversation between you and the subjects.
Yeah. It was, I don't know, it was probably like 10 years ago.
Right.
I started to get into going back to film. I mean, you know, when I started my career where I was shooting film, you know, we had bricks and bricks of triacs rolling around in the trunk, and then went to color, and then, you know, we went to digital. But there was a time, I think we all remember, where, you know, in our industry, people were getting caught for manipulating stuff because of computers and so on.
Right.
And I don't know, there was this urge of like going back and just saying, hey, screw you all. I have a camera, I have film.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. There's no manipulation. There's nothing, you know, what we had in the beginning, nobody could question us in what we did.
Right, right. No, I remember that period because I was editing during that period. And my God, it seemed like every other, I don't want to say every other week, but every other month, there was something popping up from somebody having either manipulated something or, you know, done something that, you know, none of us would ever do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And so I started carrying the rollie around with me, and then I realized that it really gave me an advantage. By just having it out, I could start a conversation with somebody, and it's like they would look at it and go, "Oh, I had one of those. My dad had one of those. My grandfather had one of those," and we'd start these conversations, and it would break down these walls.
It does.
And then I'd say, hey, you know, can I shoot a few frames with this?
Right.
And before I knew it, I had an extra half an hour with people. You know, the handlers are off in the corner just pulling their hair out. It's like, this guy's got to go. And he's like, you know, let's keep going and talking. And it was great. I mean, you know, to have that little extra time, even though I wasn't shooting my digital, but it gave me an opportunity to have a better connection. And then later on, I started to actually, if I had time, I'd process the film, create a file, and I would submit it with my New York Times digital take. And then over time, editors started asking, it's like, hey, could you shoot 2.25 for this assignment? You know, that other stuff you did. And it was an amazing validation of the work that I was putting into the film work I was doing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you see 2.25 work like this. I mean, it just stands out so much. That's one of the things. We're sharing your Instagram handle as we talk here. We're sharing your website. Where you know, I'm making sure everything's out there for people to find you, because I want people to know about this work that you've done. I want people to know about the work you're doing. I mean, this is invaluable, this work. It's historical. I mean, medium format photography. Look what I broke out just to show you, just for you. Look at that. Look at that. One of your babies, man.
Here's one. Here's the Irving Penn modification. So
Okay. I haven't used it in a long time, but I'm keeping it in mint condition, and hopefully I'll find the time between everything else to do something with it again. But I wanted to break that out in your honor.
well, you got to get it out there and use it because they don't like to be sitting on a shelf. They're
Yeah, I know. I might have to have it cleaned up a bit. We're gonna have to talk about that offline and stuff. But so some comments are coming up here. Estras Suarez is saying, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning photographer from the Boston Globe in the old days. Beautiful work, says Estras. We have a whole load of comments coming here that I'm sure. My assistant is Jonathan Borstein, and he is going to be on very soon. We've been having some connection things going on, but we're going to have him on very soon. I wanted to acknowledge Jonathan. He's a dear friend and a great colleague, and he's going to be helping me out in the future with this broadcast as my assistant. And I so appreciate his help with the captions, and I so appreciate everything else. So we'll get that straight. So he's taking care of that. And so I am going to go back to the questions here, and we are going to get rolling. So we've got. So what were you working on, Peter, before COVID-19 hit, and what were you working on now? And could you please share some insight on what you've been doing to stay busy and creative?
Before this, it was just kind of doing the, making the money, freelancing for over 30 years. It's with a few staff jobs. I mean, it's on that end, having only 5 years as a staff photographer, and the rest of my career has just been out on my own. Okay. So it's always finding projects to start to work on. I've had so many over the years. I've been doing a lot of the 2.25 work, and it's all self-generated and trying to find a place for it. And actually, I started working on more political stuff with the 2.25 as we were ramping up for the election. And 4 years ago, ABC News got me to shoot 2.25 outside the conventions, both the Democratic and the Republican conventions, for that cycle. Mm-hmm. And so I was doing daily turnarounds of shooting 2.25 and then posting a gallery every day.
Okay.
And so that's what I was looking for coming into this, hoping that I could secure some time on the campaign trail with somebody, doing my different look.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, I mean, that's the one thing, here comes finally, sorry, the website was taking a little bit to load here. So, you've covered so much. I mean, you've covered the campaign trail, you've covered a lot of these horrible wildfires and stuff.
Yeah.
And, the wildfires, I mean, just must be so devastating to be in the middle of. How do you talk to everybody, tell everybody, how do you stay focused when you're in the middle of that, especially with all the gear you're carrying and everything else? And I'm going to go through some of these photos as you're talking here and telling people your story about this.
God, I don't even think about it anymore. It
Right.
has become muscle memory.
Right.
You're out there by yourself. You're constantly checking the weather, seeing what's around you. Fire, I think most people are scared of the fire. Fire you can predict. What you can't predict are the trees and the poles possibly coming down on you. Mm. And it was the Napa fires. Literally was following this fire engine into this area, and they paused, they looked around, and then kept going. And I started to look around, and I just realized that I wasn't going to go in there. There was just some instinct about it just didn't look right.
Right.
Literally, as I was backing up, a tree fell in front of the car. And I don't know if I would have been there or they would have been there, but it was like there was something wrong. And so it becomes this innate sense of what's around you. And you know where to go, you know where not to go. and then you just capture what you see, find people, find moments, and for the most part, these guys are amazing.
They really are.
Same time, they're looking out for you. They know you're there, but we just kind of go and do our own thing.
Yeah, no, I have to say, firemen are so, all first responders are so incredible.
Yeah.
Fire jumpers, as they call them,
Smoke jumpers. Well, we don't have. I mean, we have smoke jumpers here,
right.
but most of these guys are actually either Cal Fire. They're all wildland guys, and then you have the mutual aid people that come up from all the different cities that come up to help.
Right. Now, Estedas just asked a question. He said, do you have any great stories or a story that stands out about any of the smoke jumpers?
Never really run into smoke jumpers.
Okay.
Those guys go and they're deep.
Right.
They get dropped in there. They do their thing, and you never see them.
Right. You probably don't want to, right?
That's a little too far for me.
That's a little too far for you, right? I know.
Yeah.
No, I will say, first responders, firemen in particular, are always so amazing. I remember quickly years ago, I was taking pictures of a huge 5-alarm blaze on the West Side Highway. The building collapsed. I was in a collapse zone and I didn't know. And this firefighter actually, as I was taking the photos, jumped on top of me and covered me with his coat and everything. And all of a sudden, all these bricks started flying all over the place. He told me afterwards, he said, "Kid, do not ever go into a collapse zone."
Yeah. I think you're showing the campfire. There were 3 guys. They were federal agents out of Reading, and they were amazing. They were running around on their own, looking for people, and then they were picking up animals. Every time they would see a loose animal, dog, cat, they grabbed them. And I ended up meeting them in this parking lot where I had found somebody with a horse.
Right.
And that story just kind of took on a life of its own.
Yeah. That story, I was going to ask you, what's one of the most impactful moments? What's a story that stays with you to this day? So let me go back to that photo real quick and let's have you talk about that, because that was one of the stories when we talked. I'm going to get it up right now. Pardon me. We're going through all these incredible moments that you've taken here. And we're going to have you tell the story about this horse.
This is Augie. His owner was Hillary. She was escaping the fire, realized that she didn't have a trailer, and she sent her son and her boyfriend off in a vehicle. And her and Augie, they decided that they were going to ride out of the fire. She told me, I found her in this parking lot with just Augie standing there looking at what's going on, because it was the safest place to be.
Right.
She ended up going down this trail. Cars are going down this bike trail. Spooked Augie. They rolled down this hill. She ended up under the horse for about 10, 15 minutes, trying to get him off of her. He was constantly biting her arm. They ended up at this parking lot. I found her. We were talking, and these agents had come in with these dogs, and they're trying to figure out what to do with them. And then Hillary walks by with Augie, and she's just bawling her head off. And I stopped. I said, "Hillary, what's going on?" She's like, "I got to cut him loose."
Right.
I'm like, "What do you mean you got to cut him loose?" It's like, I got to let him go because I can't get him out of here. And I said, no. It just immediately stopped and said no. I looked over these guys and told them what was going on. We stood there. We were just like, what can we do? How can we get this horse out of here?
Right.
A trailer. They decided to go find a trailer or something.
Right.
And the 3 of them took off in 3 trucks. I sat there with Hillary for, I don't know, another half an hour. Law enforcement said everybody's got to go, and in California, the media we're allowed to stay on our own, and, not like other states.
Yeah.
I decided it's like, I'll stay with the horse. You guys go, and hopefully these other guys will come back with a trailer and we'll get them out of there.
Right.
So I ended up staying with Augie for a good 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot as flames got it. I think one of the photos, it got really dark and it was just him and myself,
Right.
in this parking lot.
Yeah, no, we saw that. That was
back up with a toy hauler. There was actually a quad in the back of that thing.
right.
And if anybody knows anything about horses, they don't like small spaces and dark spaces.
Right.
And I swear to God, Augie knew what was going on. He didn't fight. We got him into the trailer. Until we closed the door, he finally kicked and started to make a fuss. But I think he knew that we were there to help him.
Right. And that was the trailer, obviously.
Yeah, that's the trailer. You could tell.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily Augie was a small horse.
Yeah.
A big trailer for.
Well, thank God everything worked out with that. And I mean, that was a devastating fire. And, all of you who worked that fire and documented it for the world to see, to understand, even Estra says, what a touching story. We thank you for telling that story, for doing your part, and for helping Augie and his owner. Just incredible photos, Peter. So one of the questions that was up there before was, what do you think, if we can find it again, was, I think, a question on what do you think of some of these really high-res cameras that are out there now compared to some of the, wonderful classics that you use with film,
Boy, I think people have done tests. I personally have never used any of these cameras, the digital high-end digital cameras.
Right.
There's nothing like film.
Right.
You can't create. That's the thing with the rollies. It's not just the format. It's the film. It's the lenses. It's the format. There's just these innate qualities that these cameras have that you can't reproduce with a digital.
Right. No, absolutely. And I'm going to post
that's what it is. I pick the rollies. They give me an advantage. There's something about not having a camera in your face, between yourself and the subject. And people I don't know, it breaks walls down. So there's a conversation about the camera. There's a conversation about, there's like I said, there's nothing between myself and the subject when I'm working with a camera like that.
Right. No, they're amazing, cameras. The quality is incredible. I'm trying to.
You can repair them.
You can repair them.
I will have these cameras for the rest of my life, and I'm lucky that the 3 rollies that I did have, they were stolen at one point and recovered, and that's just a whole nother story of the community that I work in. That people, a camera store friend of mine came across the cameras because, like, an hour after they were stolen, they were brought into his store. He figured a way of how to paying for them. After that, another friend came up with a GoFundMe project to help pay for paying Matt back for recovering the cameras. And people from all over the world were giving me money to pay off these cameras. So they're special cameras. It was a special Christmas gift that I could never ever imagine, but the community had saved them, and the community is now getting to see how special they were to me, and that's what I can do to give back to them.
No, I have to tell you, every image I come across that you've worked on with these cameras just absolutely is mind blowing. And this image really stood out to me. Edward Leskin says, "Film is precious. I think it makes us better photographers with digital." Nice comments on how it is nice that you can repair the old cameras, says Edward. He's a big Leica user himself. So I've seen his work, great work by Edward. So this photo here, I kept going back to it every time I was preparing photos for this discussion. And I keep looking at it. It's something about that mural reaching down, to this homeless man. And, talk about this for a second.
I look at it. It is one of those photos. It's such a hard read, because there's just so much going on.
There is.
And I mean, I'm personally conflicted by a lot of the stuff that I like.
Right.
That is like this. It's a hard read. You really have to spend time.
Right.
And this was in the Mission of San Francisco, and I mean, there's just every wall in the Mission is covered in murals.
Right.
And there's so much color. I mean, I don't even remember what color this was. They jump at you. But
Right.
at the same time, there's just something about the graphic nature of the tonal range that
There is.
That draws you in.
There is. I mean, you know, I want to go through some of these for our viewers as we're talking here. And one of the other things I wanted to ask you was, you know, so what does attract you more, Peter? This is a question that we have to ask you. What attracts you more, color or black and white, honestly?
Black and white. That's what I learned on. And, you know, I started off with a Pentax MX that a friend helped me out with, who was an amazing photographer himself. I mean, I think, let's go back to
Sure.
A friend of mine when I worked in a bike shop. He
more.
was a Vietnam vet, came back, loved to take pictures. Every summer he would go to the weirdest places in the world and shoot shopping bags of chrome. He would come back and shoot Kodachrome, and we'd sit there and go through all this stuff. And it was just like, I mean, he could have had a job at National Geographic.
Right.
He was a bike mechanic. He was a bike builder. And I think even before I got into photography back in Berkeley was because of him.
Right.
And it was great to see the world through his eyes. Seeing the National Geographic.
I absolutely adore this photo. It is just such a great moment in San Francisco, you know, and it's just, I love it. I love it. It's
missing the dog.
It's missing the dog, but you know what? It's his pose, it's his Tai Chi pose and everything else that just really, you know, says so much. So Seshu says I need to see that. Let's see that comment again. Are all his cameras the same focal length?
I started out with just one body. It was the normal 75 millimeter on the rollies, which is just like a equivalent to a 50, and shot that most of the time. But then when I got, you know, started doing assignment work, I realized that I did need different focal lengths, and Rolly makes 3 focal lengths. There's a 55 wide, it's equivalent to a 35. The 75 is a normal 50, and then the 135 is about an 85. So that's why I carry 3 bodies for that reason. And it was mainly for the editorial work that I wanted to do, just to break it up and see, you know, to have a different feel to it.
Yeah, no, this is another photo that I absolutely adore of yours. I kept going, you know the power of a photo and a great photo, and that draws you in when you keep going back to it. And on your feed, on your Instagram feed, which is, by the way, tell everybody the name of it that we're running on the banner here, because I love it.
It's TLR, which is twin lens reflex _ life squared.
Classic handle for Instagram. You nailed it. You nailed it.
Well, I really do see everything in squares, and I, you know, people say rules of third and like centering stuff, things like that. You know, I work out of the box,
right,
way outside the box,
right,
and you know, utilizing one lens to I don't know, to make the pictures that I make. You know, I think in the journalism world, we would say I'm under-lensed. But a friend of mine says I'm really not, because, you know, I know how to use that lens. And I don't even need to sometimes really look through the camera to know where a picture is, because I know it's going to fit.
Right. No, I tell you, man, I I want to get to another part of your project in a moment that is so special. But one of the well, somebody asked the question, so I'm going to go over that. But what I'm going to ask you, what's one of your favorite things in life to work on as a photographer, and what's the one subject that you're most passionate about?
God, I'm all over the place. I love studio work. I love being precise. George Hurrell was one of my favorites. And here you have a Hollywood portrait photographer who used multiple lights, hot lights, was able to sculpt a face and a body, and I don't know, that just fascinated me. And so, yeah, I spent a lot of time in the studio, but at the same time, I love being on the street, just finding quirky things that just entertain me. And
I love this photo right here. It's just such a great photo. I grew up in Greenwich Village, and I grew up right near Christopher Street, and in the heart of the community there. And growing up in the Greenwich Village, was one of the best things in life. And I always loved taking photos at the Pride Parade and many other things. But in San Francisco, I have to tell you, man, when you walk through the streets of San Francisco, it doesn't have to be any certain day. There's always something to take.
Well, this was Folsom Street Fair, which can be pretty risque.
Right.
And yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
Oh yeah, no, we'll leave it at that. But it's just going through all of the images. I want to bring up a question from my mentor, Rosalind Bernstein, Professor Bernstein from Baruch College, who was my guiding light for many years. Are there ever certain places, she has, certain subjects that demand color, Peter?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not negating color at all. I mean, that's what my phone's for.
Right.
But when I'm shooting, my film, I haven't run any film through this rollies yet.
Okay.
And I think what we were talking about the other day was, about going to Cuba.
That's right. We were talking about that going there with Esteras one day, and we're going to make it happen.
Yeah. And, yes, I will shoot color. I think it's still important, but there's something about, the contrast that just draws me to shooting black and white.
Right. No, I get it. Listen, when I first started shooting, I shot all black and white. I loved it. I loved shooting it. I always will. Digital has taken over my life. Color's taken over my life in a lot of ways with social media, but that's just how life rolls these days. Atar Khan says, isn't it hard to get space? Black and white on color print media nowadays? Oh, okay. I see what he's asking. He's saying, is it harder to get space in the media for black and white as opposed to color?
It is. But, I mean, I've been fortunate to have a few places like ABC News, NBC News, to take a risk and to, use my format. It's not the easiest format to sell. It's squares. I don't want them cropped.
Right. So I want to talk to you about this for a second, because we have to show this, because it belongs in a museum. It belongs in a museum. These photos that you've done. Tell us about your wet plate photography, collodion, as you would call it, the development process, how you shoot it, what it means to you. Talk about this, please. The Immortals project, you call
this came from. It goes back to what we talked about with the manipulation of images, and then also we're losing our visual archive, our visual history. I mean, I would say we got like 3 decades already lost in amongst everybody, because we've gone to digital. Digital is I don't know, the early days, the resolution was so small, and you had it on your work computer. You left work and it's like, oh, all my pictures are gone. And, it's disposable. We don't have those shoe boxes. We don't have anything that ties you in.
Right.
And so this project was based on getting people to think about their visual history and to somehow maintain it. Take your digital images, put them into books figuring out a way of putting it into something tangible. So when I came up with a project, what was the most tangible thing was film.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found out about wet plate and how it survived 150 years. You can still go to a antique store or a swap meet and find a tintype
Right.
that's 150 years old, and it looks like it was from the day it's created.
Right.
So I learned how to do this on my own, which was a multi-year process of a lot of experimentation. It goes back to my kind of nerdy side, and aligning of the moons. What I talked about earlier is that everything has got to be done precisely in order to create a wet plate image.
Right.
And I also then figured, well, how else can I make it better? And going back to Harel and multiple lights, most wet plate images are daylight, long exposures. It's 30 seconds. The film speed's like 0. But how could I, do it the way I do my work in my portraiture and my lighting? So Heinz Klutmeyer, an amazing photographer, SI, Time Life, contacted me because he heard that I was interested in some lights, and I got the old Ascor speed lights from him, created by Doc Edgerton, that had enough power to use it with the I'm getting really nerdy here, with the film speed. Mm-hmm. And I could have multiple lights in my shoots. I could freeze action, something you could never do with wet plate photography. So I was shooting, one of my things was like to shoot a dancer midair, to shoot someone smoking. A friend of mine, Lloyd Francis, former photographer, now author. Here's the picture of the dancer.
Oh, right.
Lloyd was smoking. So it was just like, you can't capture any of that on wet plate until you have enough power. Right. And the Ascors gave me that. You could do 50,000 watt seconds in a single pop.
Wow. That's
think about it. Your biggest Speedotron is 4,800 watt seconds. And I can multiply that 5 times or 10 times and have 50,000 watt seconds in a single pop.
Edward here says, it's amazing to see how these images are not cropped. When you see as the camera sees, it becomes your second vision. You have the photo in your mind before the shot, and when the decisive moment appears, everything is natural. All editing and cropping happen in the mind before exposure. Beautiful, he says.
Thank you. That's the reason why all my images are full frame. It's exactly how I saw it. There's no manipulation. We got your typical, I scan them full frame. I love the dirty borders. And, it's just global changes to make these images. With the wet plate, same thing. These are 14-inch square aluminum plates. So these things are huge.
Yeah. While we're talking about all this, I think we're going to have a little fun with everybody here. And we're going to take all the comments off the screen for a second. And I'm going to go to a special little thing I prepared. And once again, with a little music here, but thanks to StreamYard. Thanks to Adobe Spark Post, which I did not hit the mute button on. But I want to give everybody a little preview as to you and your toys and all the work you do. You knew I was going to go there, right? Little preview there, a little show as to all the toys you have and all the incredible things that you work with. One of the photos that flashed by there was of Lisa Fischer, who used to be one of the most incredible background singers for the Rolling Stones.
Still is. What are you talking about?
Right. No, she still is, but I think that they actually have another backup singer that does some touring with them as well now too. It's because I met Lisa at the Rolling Stones exhibitionism tour, which I worked with doing social media. And thanks to a branding expert named Emilio Pardo, who brought me into Jackson, who sponsored it. Anyway, Lisa is just amazing. So what's it like? You take this beautiful photo of somebody like her. I want to get to the other one again while I'm talking here. You take this beautiful photo of her, and then you're able to put it right in her hands. You know, let me get to the, you know, when you then see her, to show her this beautiful image that you took of her. I mean, what did she say to you? I mean, do you remember?
Oh God, that was such a blur. You know, it's kind of funny when I'm doing these things. I literally come out of this thing high as a kite because of um, one thing is because of the size of these plates, the amount of ether that gets in the process that is coming off of these plates, and I can only do about 4 or 5 shoots or images because at that point I am literally as high as a kite.
Yeah.
And I start to forget things. The process, you know, but yes, it is. She loved it.
Oh, you know.
I met her during a New York Times shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Shot my digital. Actually did shoot some 2.25 of her, black and white, and I think I shot some color. This is back when I did do a little bit of color. And then I contacted her. Well, I talked to her. I said, hey, I got this other project that I wanted to capture people on this on the process. And she came. She was in San Francisco at Yoshi's. I gave her a call. She eked out a little bit of time before a show, and then I went that same night and shot 2.25 during her show.
Wow, just amazing. I tell you, I saw her at the Blue Note about 2 years ago. My wife and I went, and we saw her, and it just blew us away.
An amazing voice. I mean, it's a voice from heaven.
It's angelic. It really is. I sat there and I had trouble. I did a video. I would never show the video because they don't allow that through the Blue Note, and I would never put it online. But I use it during my lectures in smartphone photography and other things. And I keep that video, and every now and then I just listen to that voice on that video I did from the Blue Note, and it takes me to another dimension. You know?
Oh yeah. No, she was amazing, and you know, just to have. I think we spent like 3 hours together in the studio.
Yeah.
This one had a studio in San Francisco, and
she's just incredible. So one of the things I want to do here, I'm gonna go to some full frame images that you'll see, I'll see, and the people will see. But I want to show them, and I want to have you talk about something very special here, folks, because Peter is also not only a incredible classically trained photographer and a genius, in my opinion. Also, no, you are, Peter, and then truth be told. And the other thing is that you know, it's thanks to people that like you that we keep these classic forms of photography and other things in our hearts and in our lives. And that's so important, because when we lose that, it's going to be gone. And we can't let that happen. So I hope you have many, many more years to come to keep doing this. But I wanted to talk about your other thing, which is you are an inventor. Talk about that briefly. And I'm going to show some stuff here that shows what you've done. Let me get it up here. And I'm going to pull this up right here. And I'm going to take myself.
Okay. Like I said, I love the process of things. I love how things are made. Working in a bike shop, always work with my hands. And I think it was Eric Risberg of the AP. I think it was before the Athens Olympics. He asked me about maybe creating a plate to put a camera on for a remote at the finish line at a track meet. Mm-hmm. And so I came up with some square plates with holes in it. You can mount a ball head, and then it turned into, I don't know, a business.
Right.
Vince LaFerre asked me if I could make a couple for him for the New York Times. So within, I think, I don't know, 4 weeks, I designed, created, manufactured some prototypes and sent them off to the Olympics with him.
Mm-hmm.
Turned into a small business,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like Jim Domke. You know, I like making stuff for myself, and then if I could share it with others, and so they I don't know, took off. They're at the White House. They're up on Capitol Hill. Sports photographers, SI photographers. God, Heinz Klutmeyer, talk about him. The picture of Michael Phelps just touching the wall. All those cameras in the pool during the London Olympics were all mounted on my plates.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, this one here is the one I wanted to show that really, stands out. And Doug Mills, our buddy Doug, one of the best photographers around, took this because it's just perfect of Obama, President Obama walking by with Biden, and there's the camera right there. So it shows exactly the way it's mounted. I really like this photo to be able to show it to everybody while you talk about this.
Yeah, unfortunately, I stopped shut down the company. Actually, I was just about to restart it before the Olympics. Kind of glad I didn't pull the trigger because COVID hit, and I probably would have been stuck with, I don't know, $20,000 worth of products sitting on the shelf.
Right. Well, folks, if the pros out there, the companies out there that whether sports, other things, other photographers out there who need Peter's brilliant invention, to do this type of photography and everything else, contact him. Make sure you let him know that, that you don't, this stuff should live on. His inventions, his photography, everything about it. Let's go. So here's a photo of you in your studio with the big boy or the big girl, whatever you want to say.
Oh my God!
I mean, look at this camera. Tell us, Peter, what's going on here?
That is my Deerdorf 11x14 commercial camera, and you will not believe that camera was free to my taking. All I had to do was haul it away.
Wow.
The column stand probably weighs 300, 400 pounds. The camera is probably in the 150-pound range. A good friend of mine kind of gave me or lent me a lens that I haven't returned. But that goes back to the 1800s. It's an old Petzval lens. And yes, it's a beast.
What the funny thing is in this digital, and I'm going to say this because of the digital age that we're in. If you took that camera and you put it on the street in the middle of somewhere, it would have 1 million selfies taken with it to this day.
Oh, all the time. I mean, it's the same thing with the rollies. Just having something out there. People come up to me and goes, "Oh, I saw you at this event or this," and they remember the cameras.
Right. I mean, it's just phenomenal. Wow. I would love to. I was in San Francisco in January working with the Aquarium of the Bay, doing social media for them, launching the 30th anniversary of the Sea Lions landing on Pier 39. And I wish I had touched base with you then, man. I would love to have just been in the studio to take a look at that. I mean, it's just amazing. I just hope I get to. But one of the other things I wanted to show was this is Peter typically, out there, and he's always the one, with the 2 1/4s, and he's always the one that's loading film and doing his thing. That's Jim Wilson there on the right, Peter?
Yeah, Jim was out that day. The person in the foreground is Ken Light.
Okay.
Amazing photographer and another film photographer too.
And this is Peter. Can you find him, folks, in this photo? I think you can. He's the guy with the 2 Rolleiflexes on his chest there, with his arms crossed. But that's Peter, while everybody else has their huge zoom lenses and everything else.
Yeah, under lens there.
Under lens. Well, tell us about some of your goodies here, Peter. Not peeking out too much.
A new addition was the Noblex. One thing with the 2 1/4, so you don't really have a really wide lens other than a 35 is the max. And I've always been fascinated with the Noblex. and it gives me a 6x12 image, super wide panoramic. Most people are shooting landscapes on a tripod, and I'm just hand holding everything. It's been fascinating. I don't know. There's just something about using all these cameras in a different way.
It's such a treat for everyone to see this, to learn about it more from you, to know that it still lives, because it needs to live. It needs to have its space and its time in history again. I hope that we continue, that you continue to get to do this work and everything. Once again, I want to show Peter's website, so therefore everybody knows the website too. There's a lot on it. You guys should dig through it, and really, there it is right there. Oops, that's your Instagram. Excuse me. Did I load your Instagram into your, well, if you go to your Instagram, you can find your website. So yeah. I apologize. I must have loaded the incorrect URL there. It happens once in a while. So let's get to the last few questions here that I wanted to talk to you about, which is one thing I wanted to ask you is, what would you say? You're such a creative guy. I mean, the one thing that I love about you is that and you've always said it, is that I'm always working at something. What would you say to fellow photographers, and everyone for that matter, in the artistic community, anybody, because we're all artists, who might be stuck in a COVID rut, so to speak, and not able to create lately, something that can inspire them a bit? Any words of wisdom, Peter?
It just doesn't. It doesn't matter if it's COVID or any time.
Right.
It's always looking for a project, something that you're passionate about.
Right.
I have a list of things I want to do. It's finding the time. It's making the contacts. It's just going out and doing it. You're not going to get any better by watching videos and sitting behind a screen. You got to get out and just shoot.
Right.
People question, how much film do I shoot? I actually shoot quite a bit of film. I buy film in almost by the brick, and it's like the expense and things like that aren't a consideration. It's I just go out and shoot as much as I can.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think that's for everybody. Is be passionate about what you're doing. It doesn't matter if it's a film camera, a digital camera, your phone. I mean, I use everything, and if you don't capture it, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to see it.
Well, that's one of the things, and it's a pleasure to hear that, of course, and a thrill, because one of the hashtags I live by online is just create. I can't, everywhere I go, I have to create something, whether it's a video, whether it's a photo, whether it's a pano, whatever it is, I always have to, because it's just what I live for. I live to create stuff. So I know you're the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I can't sit still. I mean, I've been thinking of stuff, but I'm like, okay, oh God, everybody's doing porch. I'm not putting them down, but there's just so many of these projects that are going on that are just being repeated. And, unfortunately, where I live, the architecture doesn't lend for very compelling images. I mean, I look at what's coming out of Italy and I see what's coming out of New York. I mean, there's stuff that's just mind blowing. And, unfortunately, I'm just not in a region that things are happening.
Yeah, but you know what, Peter? You always have something else up your sleeve, and that's why I wanted to show this little video here. I'm going to pull this stuff out on you, man. I mean, you pointed out to me, and I'm bringing it up for the fans out there to see how geeky and how incredible you are.
Okay.
Let me play this, and then you'll explain to everybody what's going on here. Hold on, let me blow it up a little here so we get excuse the blowing up part, because you'll see in a minute why I shouldn't be saying that. But
all right.
So talk about that, Peter.
That's 50,000 watt seconds of power in one pop. Doc Edgerton, who created this lighting system, I found an old film clip of him teaching a class and literally igniting a newspaper with a flash. And I've been wanting to do it, and I actually just pulled this off about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And I don't know, it's the whole geek side of me. I love stuff like this.
I got to pull it up again and play it for everybody one more time. I mean, it's just wild. I mean, you have so many toys and so many things you like to do. I love it. I love it.
Well, the Ask For stuff is up for grabs. I hate to say it, but the Immortals project has been put on hold.
Wow.
And
well, I really hope that anything that you are going to have to part. Let me get rid of this for a second. I love that sound when it goes pop. But one of the things I want to say is that, anybody who's listening, if there's anybody that wants to help Peter out with any of this stuff, or also if he has to find a home for any of it, and the proper home for it, let's make sure that it goes somewhere proper, somewhere historical, where it's going to be taken care of, because it would be a damn shame if this equipment, some of the big stuff, classic stuff, is not taken care of. So I want to quickly go to one more thing here, and then we're going to jump to the last questions here, because I promised to keep this almost to the Spin It Social Hour and not the Spin It Social Hour and a half anymore. So I just wanted to roll through a couple of these real quick. Hold on one second. I'm going to pull it up right now because it has to be seen because they're so fabulous. Is the sumo photos here.
Oh.
I'm sorry, but you are not going to get out of here without showing these. This must have been a hoot to shoot. I mean,
this was a week-long assignment for the New York Times in Las Vegas, and I got to spend so much time with these guys. They're young. They're 18, 19.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
they're kids.
Oh my God, 18 or 19. Wow.
Yeah, and like literally the guy in the back there, and he was like 19, 20 years old.
Man, that looks like a Katz's pastrami sandwich on steroids.
What is that? God, it's
brisket.
No, that's pastrami.
Oh, it is.
I'm trying to think. It's the famous place in New York, but
was that wasn't the Second Avenue Deli back in the days?
There was no. This is in Vegas, but it was based on a place out of New York. Anyway, that's half a sandwich.
There's Eisenberg's.
Something I can't remember, but that's half a sandwich.
So, but look at these photos, man. What a treat this must have been to hang out with these guys and do these great photos of them while they're at this tournament in Vegas. And where's one of my favorites coming up here? That's a beautiful portrait. But it is, I love that. I mean, what a great shot. What a great angle and everything. Just what a hoot, man. And what an incredible sport,
These guys, I mean, they are so limber and so quick. You would never expect to see how fast these guys are.
Right.
And they carry themselves in one way how you see them, but they are just the most gentle individuals you would ever meet.
Wow, 18 or 19, it just blows my mind. I gotta make our kid eat more.
Their bill is just off the chart.
Peter, I tell you, your work, man, is just incredible. It's been such a pleasure talking about all this. One of the things I want to wrap with here as we're at 12:03 here, so let's begin that wrap part, is social media. Here we are, this classically trained photographers. You are using all this incredible equipment, and I hope everybody just had a thrill looking at so much of this work on the Spin It Social Hour today. It's a joy to bring all these photographers on, and Peter in particular. But tell me, with social media, I mean, you already have the perfect handle. Folks, we have to keep that handle out there. I mean, Life Squared, TLR _ Life Squared. Find Peter, follow him, click on his website there, go to his website. The URL got bollocks up there. But anyway, Peter DaSilva Photography, find him. Keep everything alive for him. Make sure if you have work, find Peter. He's one of the best. And but how do you view social media quickly and your use of it and everything else? And then I want to give you a couple of things that I think will benefit you in the long run. Gary Hirshhorn says it's the Carnegie Deli.
That's it, Carnegie Deli.
Gary Hirshhorn wins the prize, folks.
Yeah. God, for being a freelancer, it's somehow you got to be out there in people's faces.
Right.
I use Facebook that way, just showing that I'm still alive. I'm being creative. I'm creating something. Most of the black and white stuff I do is self-generated, and so that's what I want to be shooting. And so I'm pushing it on Facebook, on Instagram, and it's just kind of feeding people, just teasing them with what I have.
Well, I want, one of the things I think with social media for you that's going to benefit you tremendously, we want to do something special for Peter. We want to build him a cult following, folks. We want to build him the following he deserves, to honor his work, to honor him. So I want you to think about doing some stories, and I'm gonna give you some insight off the show here in the future about doing some Instagram stories, and we're going to build you a cult following, because by using stories, I think you're going to get a lot of views on things, and I think people will geek out with you on your equipment and other things. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to get you into using some stories, and you're going to, I think, like it. And I think it'll get you out there more. And the other thing is, I'd love to see you have more of a presence on LinkedIn. And I say this to every photographer, because LinkedIn is one of the most powerful platforms out there and underused by many photographers. But the corporate people are out there on it. All the big companies are out there on it. All the big people are out there on it. And you want to connect with them by doing a little storytelling and posting some of the great work there, especially the Silicon Valley portraits and other things that you have the rights to, because you want to be able to show that to people and say, hey, here I am, man. Because this gentleman right here, folks, Peter DaSilva, needs to be working for you and needs to be doing things. And this isn't a sell, this is a given. And I'll stand on anything and say anywhere to anybody about this.
You're hired. You're hired.
I'm
a creative. It is the hardest thing to take what I create and sell it to somebody.
Right.
I really hate the business end of this.
But you know what? You're on Instagram. People need to keep track of you on there. We're going to get you using stories more. We're going to get you posting some stuff on LinkedIn. We're going to get your presence out there more, because we and my crowd and everybody who'll watch this afterwards on replay on my Spin It Social YouTube channel. By the way, go to the Spin It Social YouTube channel. And get me some more subscribers, folks. If I get 100, I'm up to 50 in 1 week. If I get 100, I get a custom URL. And then all these great interviews with Peter and others will be cataloged there, and we'll be able to keep them in business and keep them out there. They deserve our respect, our attention, and our love and admiration. Peter, I wanted to thank you so much for being here with me, sir. I'm like a kid in a candy store talking to you.
Thank you so much. I don't know. I appreciate everything you're doing for me and for the rest of the community. We're all kind of in this all together, and we have to pull it together as a team.
We are. Every post I make, I talk about that, about being together. So one of the things we're going to end with before I let you go is we're going to go to what I call my photo pick of the week. And I'm going to share the screen here, because it's not a literal photo that I took off the internet. I would never do that. But it's of a photo from a hospital in Wales. And it just, let me go up to the actual photo here. Sorry, this is who took, well, let me start here. This is Glenn Dean, who took the photos in a hospital in Wales, and he has captured life on the ITU since the onset of COVID-19. And I wanted to go to one photo in particular here, and then you guys can find the URL at bbc.com on their news site. with this headline, Coronavirus, Pictures Show Trials and Smiles on COVID-19 Unit. This photo right here just really stood out to me this week and just really made me go, man, thank God for these first responders and thank God for everything they're doing. You could see the exhaustion on their faces, their body language and everything, all grouped up in this ER room there after probably working countless hours. I mean, what would we be doing without these people? You know,
I totally agree with you.
They're saints. They're saints.
They are, and I have a strong connection with the health community. Actually, took a corporate job last year that didn't work out, but the people I met, the situations I was in, this brought back a real strong memory of. It's called the Honor Guard, and it's when somebody who has was basically brain dead and they were going to donate their organs. And in the hospitals, they have this honor guard of lining. There's a picture in here similar to this of the person leaving the hospital. But what I was able to witness and to be the honor of actually photographing it was 100 plus individuals from around the hospital came to line the hallway for this person who was going to donate his organs. And this quiet procession of them moving him from the ICU to the operating theater was the most powerful moment. And it shows how much these people care about complete strangers.
Yeah, well, I wanted to give a big shout out to Mr. Glenn Dean here, who works there in Wales at the hospital. I'm going to go back up here real quick, and I'm going to say that it was the intensive therapy unit at Neville Hall Hospital in Abergavenny, Monmouthshire in Wales. So look up Glenn Dean, Glennndene. Find his work at the BBC and read this story. Pay attention to this. Give him the respect and the first responders the respect that they deserve. We all do. I sure hope we do. They are amazing. But Peter, I wanted to say once again, thank you for everything. That was my photo pick of the week because that's just an intense photo. And God bless our first responders. So, Peter, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Stefan, and and everybody who's out here. I mean, just let's just keep it rolling.
Yeah, let's keep it rolling. Let's stay safe. Be safe, sir. Be well. We'll be in touch. We're not going to lose touch with you. An extra tightening of the bond has been created here. And
West Coast to East Coast.
West Coast, East Coast, baby.
Oh, I'm still living on East Coast time. I did it for 20 years working for the New York Times. Everything was, if it was not done by 3 o'clock, I was late.
Right.
So,
Peter, final thought here, and then we're going to leave off this. I got to cut it off here. This COVID-19 medical professional work is such a great example from Kimberly Wang, who's a fantastic photographer. I'm going to send you her URL. You have to see her work. It's such a great example of the power of photography to influence hearts and minds. We'll leave. That is a beautiful wording to leave on. Words of wisdom and just a statement there from Kimberly Wang. Ear Dog Photo. Check her out. One of the greats. Thank you so much, Peter. I'll see you later, okay?
Great stuff, man.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Close out with some cards. Don't leave the studio. I want to talk to you for a minute.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. So, folks, this is another Spin It Social Hour that has gone just a tad over, but Peter deserves every minute, folks. He is a legend, and I hope that you go to his Instagram handle and continue to find him, support him, help him find homes for some of his equipment that he may have to part with. God bless him, and God bless the work he does, and I thank God for knowing him and having edited his work. So I'm going to close out here by saying some tidbits here. I wanted to let you know about a great Sunday read-along that's coming up with my colleague and dear friend, one of my dearest friends, Sri Srinivasan, this Sunday. 8:30 in the morning on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, with another former colleague of mine and one of the best, Cornelia Dean, who is an author and the former science editor at the New York Times. Much respect to the science section at the New York Times. Always one of my favorites. Tune in this Sunday to see Sri and Neil Parekh and the gang talk to Cornelia. She's just a legend at the New York Times. And so tune in for that. And then also, I want to tell you about the News Project Live, one of my favorite news shows, one of the most important news shows out there on the web and on live streaming that's going on with Merrill Brown, a legend himself, and Alex Leo, the head of audience. The News Project Live is this tonight at 6 p.m., every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And their guest this week, first, it's a weekly conversation with media industry experts and innovators about the future of news, brought to you by The News Project. Episode 3 with David Folkenflik, media correspondent, NPR News, host and editor of On Point. Tune in tonight, folks, at 6 p.m. for Merrill and Alex and David, and learn a lot about the media industry, about the news business. We need to support our media, our newspapers, our journalists, our photojournalists. Facts matter, folks, okay? So please support them. And I want to close out finally by telling you about my next guest next Thursday. And we're going to have a special slot this Tuesday coming up, which I'll talk about over the weekend. But this Thursday coming up is my good friend and brother, I call him, Ronaldo Robinson. I owe him everything, folks. Ronaldo was the man who put my first camera in my hands. It brings a tear to my eye. He's a great photographer. We're going to introduce you to him and let you know all about him so you can know more about him and his work. And Ronaldo, I look forward to having you on. RMR Pictures, everyone. He's great. Great studio photographer. And we work on a lot of things together. And it's a pleasure having him on next week. So, folks, Spin It Social is my brand. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, everywhere across the board. It's Spin It Social. Stephen Kaplan here. I will look forward to seeing you again soon. And I thank you for your time. And I wish you well, be safe, and talk to you soon. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.